Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the channel. Now this is a semi-update slash regular episode. So the first announcement I want to make, or rather the only announcement I want to make today, is the fact that I am sorry that I am behind on my book impressions episodes here on the channel. I know there are a lot of books that I've interviewed from previous authors that have not been featured yet on the channel. And that's not also including the ones that are on my computer. So, my plan going forward is to review one or two books a month on the channel, whether that's a first impressions or a full-on review. So with that being said, this episode is going to be a double feature review on the channel. So we're going to be focusing on two books today. The first book we'll be talking about is The Nameless War by Will Solomon. Now, I had the opportunity to chat with Will this past Friday, and in that interview, we discussed The Nameless War, as well as his plans going forward with the series. Now, my overall recap of The Nameless War is that it's a very good book. It is very much historical fiction, a little bit of fantasy, and what's really amazing about The Nameless War is the fact that it's set during the early 20th century, and then it goes into an alternate World War II, which is very nice. It definitely has to deal with a lot of angels, a lot of demons, a lot of demonic forces, which honestly is really good. And I don't want to give too many spoilers for The Nameless War, for those who haven't read the book yet. But The Nameless War follows one central character in the beginning. He is the son of a lord, or rather the adopted son. But as the story progresses, we then follow a new character, or rather a new protagonist, and that is of course the adopted father. And the story all follows his story. And you find out he is actually the true protagonist of The Nameless War. And we learn a little bit more about him, why he's stuck on Earth, how he acquired his wealth, why he views humans the way he does, and ultimately his relationship with other beings like him, which include angels, demons, and other forces. And what I really do appreciate about The Nameless War is that it blends the two very beautifully, and that is of course fantasy and history, which you don't see a lot of historical fantasy set during the 20th century. If we do get historical fantasy, it's usually in the pre-modern gunpowder era, or even Roman historical fantasy, medieval European fantasy, or even North's Viking fantasy. But we've never had a story like this before, The Nameless War, which then of itself is a very interesting title, The Nameless War, because we don't know what kind of war this is. We have no idea of who are the major players. We're getting glimpses of the major characters in The Nameless War. And ultimately, it keeps you really engaged. It is a slow burn, I will say. It definitely builds on the strength of, imagery, world building, really setting the stage for future books in the series, which, if you watch my interview with Will tells myself as well as the audience that he's working on a spin-off slash sequel to The Nameless War, which is set in World War II. And ultimately, The Nameless War is really a great story in of itself. I know a lot of you have heard me say that, but it's very true. The Nameless War is very original, especially when it comes to the use of angels and demons. I've read a lot of stories that use angel imagery or angel-like characters, but in this story, I kind of get the feeling of Castlevania, in the sense of the TV show, where Dracula, he doesn't want to be around humanity, but with his wife, she kind of, allows him to see humans. But with her death, he throws that out the window. That's actually probably the best little spoiler I can give for The Nameless War when it comes to that particular character. And for those who have read The Nameless War, you're going to know who I'm referring to. And ultimately, The Nameless War is, in my opinion, a perfect read for 2025. And honestly, you will not be disappointed. I will link the interview down below in the description of this video, as well as tagging it right here for you to watch. And that'll be both interviews. Will's first interview here and Will's second interview right here. And also, speaking of angels and demons, the next review that I'm going to be talking about is actually a book that's coming out in 2 weeks. And that is, of course, Memoirs of a Household Demon. Now, I don't want to go into a lot of spoilers for this book because I want to leave it up to imagination and interpretation. But what I will say is that Memoirs of a Household Demon is the better version of Good Omens. Now, if you've seen Good Omens on Prime, you can get an idea of what I mean by that. So what I will say that is as spoiler-free as I can be. You follow the character known as Yuri, who is a demon. And in the beginning, you follow him in his, budding relationship, rivalry with a fellow angel named Zach. And ultimately, the first half of the book is all about, them messing with their mortal that they've, latched on to try to see, is he going to go this path or is he going to go that path? But later in the book, we are introduced to another family. And it's this family that has a huge impact on all the major characters in the story, especially the main antagonist, Belial. Now, as I said before, I don't want to give a lot of spoilers in this because it hasn't come out yet. So, if you haven't pre-ordered a copy of Memoirs of a Household Demon, definitely do so. But what I will say going forward in Memoirs of a Household Demon is that you will not be disappointed. This is a book where it definitely has a lot of tropes in it, comedic aspects, the comedy is really well written, a lot of references, real world references are in it. But it definitely answers the question, or rather, it provides the perfect example to this statement, which is, even the most hated ones can be redeemed. Which, that's probably the closest I'm ever going to get to a spoiler in and of itself, because the story really pulls at your heartstrings. It starts at one area of the emotional spectrum and then goes in the complete other direction. It does a 180, which I honestly think highlights the author's use of emotional range and honestly crafting a story that's really, really amazing. Again, The Nameless War and Memoirs of a Household Demon both use angels and demons in their respective roles, being good and evil, provides new layers to them, makes them very human, which I honestly love. I love when angels and demons are very human in and of themselves, as opposed to the other, to differentiate themselves from humanity. Yes, both books do show that angels and demons are different from humans, but not that far off. They do have their emotions. They do have their moments where they are very jealous, very vengeful, prideful, etc. But they still remember who they are. And honestly, Memoirs of a Household Demon was such a good book to read. That took me maybe a month to read. So, in total, Memoirs of a Household Demon and The Nameless War, two very original fantasy stories. You can even argue urban fantasy stories are both a 5 out of 5. And honestly, I cannot say enough good things about both books and both authors. Red Nova Books, as well as aka Ben, is a very talented author, and I urge all of you to go and check him out. I will provide the link down below to look at his interview, and I also may tag it up here too so you can watch it for yourself. I will also provide the link to Goodreads to post a review, and be on the lookout for when the book does release. It will be released on the 18th of February on Amazon, so I'll also provide that link down below as well. And speaking of links, I'll also link down The Nameless War, where to purchase it on Amazon. And also, to all my followers and to all my viewers, make sure to give both of the authors a follow on their social media platforms and hype up their books. These are some incredible authors, and I wish them the very best going forward. And one final thing I would like to say is thank you. Truly. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying with me, for being so supportive. I did not think, going to 2025, what else I could do differently for the channel. But a lot of you have been very, very, outspoken, commenting on my channel, highlighting their favorite moments. I really do appreciate it. And honestly, it means the world to me. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm producing, the interviews that I'm organizing, and I cannot wait for March. So make sure to follow my newsletter to know who will be featured in the March lineup of The Wandering Scribe, as well as the books that will be featured in March's lineup, because I will be doing that. I am now making that solemn promise that I will review 1 or 2 books for every month, so that way I can get to the rest of my author's books, the physical copies, the ones that I got from the LA Festival of Books last year. Well, without further ado, thank you everyone for joining me for this semi-update / review episode here on the channel. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next week.